Welcome to Fajook Enterprises YouTube channel. It's another Conversations with Fajook, meaning it's another Wednesday, and I am back here with Mike.
Hello.
Today we are talking about the RPG system Exalted. Is that what it's
Yeah.
called, right? Exalted? Just Exalted?
Exalted. Yeah.
Welcome, heroes and villains, to Fajook Enterprises YouTube channel. Take a moment, relax, stop your bickering, and just enjoy the show. What is the setting and vibe of Exalted, and has it changed in its editions, and how many editions does it have?
The Exalted vibe is that of a anime meets adventure. It's a Bronze Age based setting that's post-apocalyptic. Uh, in the quick setting of the lore, the Solar Exalted had stood triumphantly over the primordials that they had defeated and had constructed this vast magic tech empire across all of creation, only to see their blood curse that had been put upon them by the fallen primordials turn them into evil tyrants. And the other exalted rose up in rebellion against these despots, and it shattered the world. So you are playing reincarnations of those previous heroes um, in fresh bodies. You don't have to necessarily play them one for one. You are your own person, but you still get their magical godhood bestowed upon you, and then you're unleashed. Do you want to restore the former solar empire to its greatness? Can you resist the evil taint that has permeated your magical being? Do you seek out new allies in the dragon-blooded or the people under the sea, or perhaps reforge old bonds with your lunar mate and your sidereal vizier? So there's many different facets and many different ways to go into Exalted, and it's so varied and wild and crazy. You can tell pretty much any story you want with little a little problem. Uh,
and is there a difference in the vibe in the three editions at all?
yes, in that the first edition it described itself more as a play or as a movie that you are enacting out. And the second and third edition take the lore as more factual, right? It's less of, I found it to be less of your movie like construction of first edition Exalted. The second edition and third edition was far more a living fantasy that you were entering, and you were donning when you if you're a player, you were donning those roles of the exalted, and as the storyteller, you were spinning their tale and weaving together mysteries and magic for your players and having a good time.
While doing research, I noticed that Wife sold its properties. I know that Vampire of the Masquerade went to Paradox, but I noticed that Exalted went to someone else. Do you know why that is?
Yes, the reason being that in 2006, White Wolf had actually merged with a company P. They're probably most famous for Eva Online. Uh, so basically, the executives at CPP had owned, well, CPP itself had owned White Wolf, and it was set up as a publishing. But then, uh, White Wolf stock didn't start to sell, and so it became a liability for CPP. CPP under some internal reorganization, and they just stopped selling White Wolf books. Uh, so then at the time, White Wolf's creative director, Richard Thomas, founded Onyx Path Publishing. And this was to be a separate entity that could license the White Wolf IP from CC and continue selling books. So this is when we started getting editions, and the masters started coming, the older ones. Um, but then CCP sold. Sorry. Well, then what happened is that Richard started buying ownership of certain licenses outright. So he bought Vampire. He bought. No, he didn't buy Vampire. He bought. But he would buy ones like Exalted. He bought Scion. He bought several other IP. And so that these were his favorite, or these what he thought were the most profitable. Who's to say, right? That's between him and God. Um, so then at this point, White Wolf properties, they're now running Kickstarters. And in 2015, CCP sold White Wolf to Paradox. The Paradox CEO being a fan of White Wolf products in his youth. He didn't want to lose them. Actually, they were up for auction, so why not? And now Paradox spun White Wolf into a company again, 2006. So that is where its legacy lies. When you're a small-time publisher, it sometimes get chewed and pooped out and wound up in the exact same situation you started in.
I've only I've only played Exalted once. I seem to remember it's a D10 system just like Exalted, but I think my memory is wrong. Could you correct me if it's wrong?
Nope. Exalted uses a die 10. It depends upon the version, but generally in Exalted, it's a one. It's a 2 to 7 is considered a success. One is a fail. 10 is an auto success. Now those are variant rules you can play with. Exalted. When I playing my second edition campaign, I may have just added that rule, and I'm sorry, everyone played with me, had to suffer through that. Exalted was my friends and I basically holding like handfuls of D10s and just splattering them on the table, like we were playing a Warhammer game of it. And then we just count up the ones, count up the 10, and yeah. So, but it was a good time. It took a while to roll, and that's when I started becoming in favor of little dice rollers programs.
So, I think you mentioned that you've run all three editions of Exalted. Is that correct?
That I did.
Is there a big is there a big difference between second and third, or first and second? Then
Oh yeah. I mean, first, the difference between first and second is pretty significant, not in terms of how threats are decided, how powers are laid out, um, how magic works. It's and like I said, it's taken more of a, in my opinion, kind of like more of an observer aspect um, than the second and third edition, which is more are that. Um, but the difference from second edition to third edition is more of a refine than a as big a jump between first and there. Uh, a lot of the mechanics were similar, and the reason being is that the initial writers for third edition were fan writers for second edition who had some of their stuff be published by White Wolf. So their version of Exalted was very similar. Well, was more of a refined version of it because of that workflow, essentially. I personally like third edition best because of that refinement. It's not a bad thing at all. It makes things a lot easier in aspects. So it's not without its problems, of course. It's a little clunky in ways, but once you can figure out something that works for you, you try and use the dice system as they put it, or put in a few house rules, make it work.
there are games like 3.5 edition Dungeons and Dragons which have a lot of crunch, and there's games like Cipher System, which is basically more collaborative storytelling with very few dice rolls, which is a lot of fluff. Where does third edition Exalted fall between fluff and crunch?
The extreme ends of both. I kid you not. And this is the reason being is that second and third edition Exalted are very much a storytelling, cooperative storytelling. I mean, I never wanted, when I was the storyteller, I never wanted to fight my players. I wanted to have a cool kung fu battle on a herd of bison. As the recent Solar Exalted is being attacked by his reincarnated uh, ancient love, who has taken the form of a cheetah woman and is trying to currently claw his face off, right? Because last time they met, it didn't go so well because he was a little crazy. So yeah, I think those are the stories I want to tell, and and my players wanted to hear. And then same thing if I was a player, right? If I wanted to, jump up side to side between a bunch of trees so I could carry my opponent into a slam into the ground that it leaves a crater in it. Go on Naruto on him, right? That's what I want to do. I want to be this big, awesome, brawler, right? And that's this. And when you find the storyteller that can encourage that play, it's very much fluff. Exalted has a dice system for that, and so you end up taking these attribute plus ability, which that can get you about 10 dice in your hands just at the get go. And then you can add like specialties, equipment bonuses. So you're about maybe 15 dice in your maw. And what I just described is would be considered a stunt. So my player jumps, if my character jumps side to side there, up the trees, all that. Me saying that, it gives me up to 3 more dice. So now I'm just quite the dice pool. And now I can consider my magic. So Exalted have abilities called charms. They're just innate ways that the Exalted, who is given a shard of divinity inside their chest, can access that divine might and empower themselves to superhuman feats. And essentially, you can like get up to 30 dice in your hand and then roll them. You do your math, and then you can use other charms to modify the results. So you can re-roll those dice, or just say, if it's a difficulty of 5, I have to roll at least 5 on the dice to succeed. No, that actually goes down to a difficulty 2. So I just can't get a crit 1 failure, right? And yeah, that's the type of power that adults have. It's a truly power fantasy that encourages a lot of rolls of the clicky, shiny math rocks while doing your best kung fu treetop battle in the middle of a tea shop description that you can.
That brings me right into my next question. I don't feel that I am creative and descriptive enough to describe an epic scene like that. Do you have any advice for people with that mindset when they're playing Exalted or looking at Exalted?
All art is derivative. That is that a lot of creative people with self doubt should internalize. You are creating a wonderful story in a voice that is your own, and you should be proud of that. And who cares if somebody else has done it before? The hero's journey is eternal, and people always want a version. People, I mean, we had look at Twilight and Mark, help me out here.
50 Shades of Grey?
50 Shades of Grey. You could have just not left me hanging there, you jackass. If you can't tell, you can't think of a epic moment where two massive lizard creatures are stomping through the streets as they breathe fire down upon the populace, and you, the lone hero, with your magic sword gifted to you by you from 1,000 years ago, will call upon the power held within it, and then your 50-foot giant robot war strider comes out of the ancient protection that it's been underneath that city, and the hydraulics lift up, and you fly towards the cockpit, insert the sword into the control console, and get ready to kick some giant lizard ass. Don't have to go that big. Tell tell something that you're comfortable with, right? Uh, I'm loud and I'm proud, uh, and that's okay with me. But not everybody wants to do that. I've had players in Exalted games who, they want to roll dice. They want to role play, right? Because they don't feel very comfortable uh, being as wonderful as I am, and so that's okay. They just said, "Well, Mike, my character wants to open the door and sneak to the side." I'd be like, "Cool, all right, buddy. Well, that take that die, roll them together. Tell me what you got." And then I had other players who would, want paint. They would paint me a scene. They would paint a beautiful picture of epic cinematic moments with their words, and we'd all get right into it. The quiet player, and she was encouraging there. She would and we would add to the scene, right? Like, oh, but what if it's kind of like this way, right? And add little parcels to the scene. Somebody puts in a chandelier so the hero can swing on it. The villain is raising the bottle of poison that he's going to throw into the town well, and it's up to the player to take their whip and snatch it out of the air just in time. So it's you feed off that energy, and no matter what that energy is, it's going to be a good time, as long as you're kind and considerate to everyone around the table, and you give equal spotlight to them for as much as they want. One thing I learned is that encouraging the newer players and the quieter players to step out of their shell is a good thing, but not everybody wants to get out of their shell. Some people just enjoy being a hermit. They want to be the hermit crab. They'll stick their head out from time to time, but that's it. They just want to see the outside world. They don't want to be exposed in the raw sunlight, burn like a ginger. So, and that is okay. And let those people have their quiet fun and not burn them with the ray of attention. And let them have fun at their pace. And as long as they're coming back week to week, I think that's a good sign. One splat. My God, I got lost in my own words and my own eyes. Yeah, stick to one splat, 100%. Don't let them diverge. It's awful when you have to not only memorize 5 different splats, different types of Exalted and what they do, but then you also have to deal with the fact that those players probably don't necessarily know what they're doing, and that adds even more confusion because now you have a lot more noise coming at you in 5 different ways rather than one. Speak from the pupil. Um, Definitely go one exalt type across the board if it's your first time. As you gain experience, or if you're cocky, go right ahead. I definitely recommend going one type of exalt for everybody for the first round.
Is there is there any interesting tales from games that you've been in or games you've run of Exalted that you would like to share? Or do you need the rest of the people there to help tell the tale?
Well, I mean, it's always good when the others tell the tale because I always end up looking marvelous, and um, so uh, one one for a silly thing between my friends. We were doing a one-on-one. I was there. He was the storyteller. Um, my character Jalabar, the Bronze Colossus, had needed to escape this death trap that he had found himself in, alone in this volcanic lair. He was set with a series of uh, obstacles and traps that he had to elude as he needed to cross the caldera and out the other side to safety. And on my first roll to jump pillar to pillar, this heavily athletic individual with bulging muscles and the power to call upon even greater physical might just botched the roll, got hit in the head with a giant swinging hammer, and fell into lava. But I'm a super badass solar exalted. What's a little lava? I started butterfly swimming all the way to the end, and then using my then skin made of metal, dug my way into the other side of the rock, bypassed all his stupid traps, and just crawled out the other side. My storyteller was credulous and just honestly a little proud. One time, when I was a storyteller, that does stick out with me. It was a group session, and they had just started gelling. What's that term? Norming. They just started to use business terms there. As a group, there where there's they were performing as a team, and they had defeated the local dynast legion in their that was having a chokehold on the local province, and they were going to go back to town and cheered as heroes when I threw the curveball. As the sun began to set on the broken castle walls, they heard a odd noise coming from the sun. As the noise grew closer, it became more distinct, and it went like this. As a chorus of beastmen began to sing along their flotilla of airships that were coming to raid that barracks. However, they were met with with a defeated garrison and no loot. So the leader uh, jumped. The leader, who was a great blue ape person who stood 12 feet tall, and he took a rope, sailed right down, right into the face of the party, and began barking at them. Uh, voice. uh, Oi, oi, oh, you lots, I'm Captain Emma. You think you could take my spoils from me? And then what proceeded to happen was a roll of stupid, as my one player with intelligence 1, which is the lowest you can get without dead, uh, out stupid Emmer into convincing him that no, it was not the fact that they had beaten them to the loot. It was the fact that they were there to soften up the targets for Emmer, and that in fact they had done such a good job that they should be in charge now. And Emmer, who decided to just get even dumber, thought, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I'm not even going to raise a big, meaty fist to punch you in the face like that was my original intention. No, no. So he just signed up right then and there as Captain Air Transport for the party who was supposed to be trapped in that province for the next 3 months of my planned out adventure. And I just had to throw out all my notes and go, well, guys, where do you want to go? And and of course these beastmen quickly became a table favorite. And uh, one time I had described their costumes as basically sky piratey, the ragged vests, daggers all over the place, booty shorts, and I had then forgotten that, described how they looked different scene, and I had to explain that discrepancy. And I went with, well, you see, guys, they have the power of instant costume change. Anytime a PC is not looking at them, these beastmen instantly transform their clothing into anything that is seen appropriate or not. The storyteller's decision. So yes, one time you might see a scruffy-looking wolf man dressed with a red bandana and a black vest as he's scrubbing the decks, and the next scene he might be perhaps wearing a fancy uniform, all dressed up because he's an officer. It's not the fact that I couldn't keep track of my NPCs and who dresses what, so I just picked the first one that came to mind and put him in a different outfit. No, power of instant costume change.
You are a good storyteller.
Well, thank you, sir. I am rather handsome.
Anyone or anything you would like to shout out at this time?
As always, I continue support for the Lethbridge, Alberta Last Chance Cat Ranch. It's a wonderful organization that seeks to promote the health and safety of animals. You saw a boy walk by a couple of times. You know, they do incredible work, and there are so many creatures in need that need. They want to help, but they can't because they're limited by their funds. So if you can donate, please. If you're local and you can foster, hey, that's even better. They're always looking for fosters. Yeah, the Last Chance Cat Ranch in Lethbridge, Alberta. Uh, can donate. Greatly appreciate it.
Links to that will be in the description, and that's it for today.
Awesome. By the way, Theta, thanks for grabbing Finn by the gut and dangling him around in the background while I'm talking about how much I love cats. It did kind of look like you were abusing him. I'm not gonna lie. You're all blurred out. So yeah, it just looked like you were grabbing him going, "Rah."